Welcome to the Pub Sports Radio College Basketball Closing Time Show. Saturday, January 9th, Conor, Mackey, and Cameron ready to break down the Saturday college basketball card as we have done the last couple of weeks. But we are aware, we haven't forgotten, clearly, with a game as big as it is, that there is a national championship to be decided in college football on Monday night. The Ohio State Buckeyes and the Alabama Crimson Tide. We will spend the late portion of this show breaking down that game as well from a betting perspective, give you our sides, totals, maybe some props we're looking at. Definitely look about that game. Conor, let's get to it. We're going to do mostly the early games to start. The majority of this card, and they often do this on a Saturday in college basketball when it's a wild card weekend in the NFL and divisional weekend in the NFL. They'll put a lot of the games early in the day and not as many at night. I find that's a pattern with what college basketball has done with the schedule the last few years. So let's start with St. John's and Creighton in the Big East. Creighton 12.5, 13-point favorites, 158.5 the total. Creighton was almost a perfect game, perfect performance against Seton Hall. Absolute dominance. We know this is a very difficult home court to beat this team. I'm so impressed with Zagorowski, with Christian Bishop. It's just a really, really strong basketball team offensively. And they just blew the doors off of Seton Hall. And, of course, it didn't help that Seton Hall had a significant injury to one of their better players early in that game. And then that's really when the Seton Hall just really sunk after that. But give Creighton all the credit. They were full marks for that blowout win over Seton Hall. It's kind of tricky to lay points like this after a performance that good. But at the same point in time, do I trust St. John's? No. The total's very high. And it's worth noting, Creighton, as much as I like to bet them over at home, stayed way under the total the last game against Seton Hall. And the defense has improved and the pace has slowed down just ever so slightly for Creighton as well in recent games. So it's a pretty high number. If anything, maybe of some value under, but I'm not going to bet a Creighton under at home, even after the last one did stay under. So it's a pass for me here. Conor, you got anything on St. John's Creighton?
I don't. I mean, Creighton, man, when they get hot, they're tops in the country. I think they're right there, and they blew Seton Hall out, especially in the second half. I'm with you. They have slowed the pace a little bit, and if both teams aren't, St. John's is a way over team as well. But if Creighton slows it down a little bit, or if they win this, by 20, it might not get there. 85, 60, it could stay way under this total. Because right away I looked at it, I was like, yeah, I'd lean on Creighton, take them and the over, but I thought, wow, yeah, pump the brakes. I think it could go over, but I'm staying off. I'm with you. I think up to 160, it could be looked the other way. I mean, when it's that high, an under could be here. Remember, early morning. I mean, it's not early morning tip. It's noon there, but still, it's earlier than these, for college kids, these early games Saturday morning. So,
yeah, I agree. I would look under the total. I would look under here. But I'm not gonna, because I don't bet Creighton under at home, even if the last one did stay under. But I understand why people might want to look that way. Early start, 11 a.m. Central, actually, in Omaha when this game tips off. So definitely an early game there in terms of the body clock. Wake Forest against Duke. We've got the Duke Blue Devils, 13.5-point home favorites, 144 the total. Life or death to beat Boston College in their last game, this Duke team. It's just not a team that's fully in sync. I know they're going to have Coach K back on the bench on the sideline today, returning to coach the team, but he can't play for the team, and they've still got problems defensively. On offense, it was better against Boston College, but Boston College doesn't play much defense. I was impressed with Wake. Okay, Wake had a great start against Virginia the other day, a really good Virginia team, one of the best teams in the ACC, obviously. Then all of a sudden the roof caved in on Wake. I think they got behind by almost 20. And yet they battled back, kept battling, and in the second half, they made a run and got that game down to single digits in terms of the final margin of defeat. Like I said about Steve Forbes, I believe in this coach. He did a great job at East Tennessee. He's got a big job ahead of him because Danny Manning left the team in the dumpster during his reign here at Wake Forest as the head coach. But this team is battling, competing defensively. They've still got work to do, but I see them making improvements on that side of the court, and I'm going to dare Duke to beat anybody by this kind of margin, and I'm not convinced they can. So give me Wake here, plus the points. I think it's too many. Wake can hang around here. And remember, they're always going to be fired up to play Duke. Always this team inside the same state. Connor, what's your thoughts here? Deacons, Devils.
Yeah, as we talked about, just Duke. I don't know when they get going. Obviously they have the talent. I think they get going here as they get into conference play. But I think this is too many. I'm with you. 14, 13 and a half. I agree. I don't know how good Wake is going to be. You sound a little more optimistic than I. I think they're going to get better, as you said. And I think this is too many. We'll see if they can hang in there. I think they can. I think it's just a tad too many. So I took the points as well.
All right, moving on now. We've got Miami, NC State. NC State 6-point home favorites, 142 the total. We're not going to go the full hour with the show, so games I don't have much of an opinion on. I'm going to be very brief, and this is one of them. Miami's going to be without McGusty and Likes once again. It's just been an ongoing theme for them with these two guys, whether they play on a game-in and game-out basis. They're not today. And when they're not going to play, I don't want Miami. I did cash with Miami the other night against North Carolina as they lost the game, but covered the number, getting 3.5. I was certainly looking at the Miami side in this game, but without those two guys, I'm not going to bet it. So it's a pass. Connor, what's your take here? Wolfpack hosting the Canes.
I think they're scrappy. I know without them, but it's a tough one. But I lean Miami. I'd take the points with them here. I think it might be a little too much.
I agree. That would be the way I'd go, but I stayed off with the injury news that was reported. Alabama, Auburn. Alabama 4.5-point road favorites, 151 the total. Auburn not playing a lick of defense. That's bad news. There is some money coming in on Auburn. They do have this freshman 5-star that's making his debut today for Auburn, and I think the betting markets are reacting to that. Certainly it's going to help them. Sharif Cooper set to make his debut for the Auburn Tigers. Really good guard. Really highly touted out of high school. But still, I mean, just bringing him back, and now we're going to rush to bet Auburn, which it looks like they're doing right now. Not me. This team's a mess. This team's a complete and utter disaster right now. And I know he's got the talent to make them better maybe eventually. You're still talking about a guy that is playing his first game of the season. Chemistry's an issue. Cohesion's an issue when you're just bringing in, especially in the backcourt, you're bringing in a new starter. Yeah, it's going to help them long term. Is it going to help them today against an Alabama team playing their best ball of the season right now? Like, Alabama's firing on all cylinders right now. This is damn impressive what we're seeing from the Crimson Tide, even in defeat against Tennessee. Remember, they beat Tennessee. They had no letdown against in their last game against Florida. Real impressive. Like that, and I'm mad at myself that I didn't bet Alabama because I said, you know what? I was worried about after the big win against Tennessee, could this team put the foot down again, keep it up? And boy, did they ever. They were way too much for the Florida Gators last week. I did bet the over in that game. It got there, but I'm still angry, though, that I missed out on betting Alabama as well. Because I said on the show that day, people are going to bet Florida because of the letdown spot after the Tennessee win. I said, I'm not stepping in front of Alabama. In fact, Alabama's the way I'd bet that game, and I didn't. But kudos to the Crimson Tide. They're playing really good basketball. They're on fire right now. There's no way I'm going against them. In fact, I did lay the points here. I know they already beat Auburn. It's revenge for Auburn for the earlier loss to Alabama this season. But, sometimes you can't buy into the revenge factor when the team you're playing is quite simply the better team. And I think that's kind of the case here with Alabama. I also like the over. I like Alabama overs. Auburn ain't playing any defense. This game should get into the 150s, well into the 150s. So I like the favorite. Alabama laying about 4.5, and I like over 151 here in this Iron Bowl basketball version of the Iron Bowl. Connor, what's your thoughts here? Alabama, Auburn.
Yeah, I think the over in this one gets there because, like you said, Auburn, their last few games have gone under, but they've been an over team, especially, and they should, with Alabama's tempo, it should go over here as well. I leaned it. Now I see a 4.5. This is at Circa. I can get a bet in there. Mostly it's 5.5 everywhere. I didn't bet this. I lean Alabama. But like I said, I might catch this if I can get a 4.5. If this comes down a little bit, I suggest taking it as well. I think Bama, they're just the better team. I'm worried about a catch spot. You said it's their second game a little bit, but I think Bama's just playing too good right now. And maybe Auburn in another spot, but I'd lean Bama here. I'm with you. I'd lay the points with them, especially under 5, if you can get it under 5.
And while they get the freshman debuting for Auburn, Justin Powell's out for Auburn. So, keep that in mind. I think people got to remember that when with the money coming in a little bit here on Auburn. Let's go to Ohio State taking on Rutgers. We've got Rutgers 4-point home favorites, 139.5 the total. Certainly the rose has come off the bloom a little bit, or the bloom has come off the rose, I should say, a little bit for Rutgers the last couple of games. It's been, they lose to Iowa. They have a brutal game against Michigan State, a Michigan State team that just absolutely collapsed and coughed up a lung last night in a loss to Purdue. It's been the week of collapses. This is unreal what we've seen in college basketball this week with the blown leads. It's been one after another. It was Michigan State last night. We saw Georgetown blow a lead this week. We saw Oklahoma State blow a lead this week. Go on down the list. I mean, Murray State. It's just been insane. The number of meltdowns and the number of collapses in the second half. I don't know what that is. Teams are running out of steam. When you're playing in front of no fans, sometimes when you get up big, you don't have that crowd to keep the momentum and the energy high, and you just completely lapse, and the other team gains confidence. I think that definitely has something to do with it. I think no fans, especially when these home teams are the ones collapsing, they don't have the fans to keep the energy high when they're up by 20. They take their foot off the gas. The other team gets a little momentum and confidence, goes on like an 8-2, 10-2 run. And next thing you know, it's a game again, and the other team can't get the momentum back. Northwestern, how could I forget that? Yes, Jake in the chat. Of course, Northwestern. I omitted the biggest collapse of the week against Illinois. So it's just been one after another this week. Michigan State certainly did that last night. As far as this game goes, I'm going to lay it with Rutgers, even though they disappointed me against Michigan State. They collapsed against Ohio State in the first meeting in Columbus, and that's meaningful revenge spot here because they had that game in hand. They had a bad second half. Steve Peichel got teed up, and it just got away from Rutgers in that game. I've got to think Rutgers can shoot the ball better than Michigan State. It does bother me this team stinks at the free throw line. I mean, they have just been absolutely brutal lately in terms of free throws. But I like the situation. I'm not necessarily a huge proponent of this Ohio State team. I think they're an all right team. I don't think they're a great team compared to Michigan, Wisconsin, and some of the other teams here in the Big Ten. So I'm going to look to Rutgers here. A short enough number. We know this is a very strong home court here in Piscataway. They very rarely lose here. I don't think they're going to lose 2 in a row here at home. They lost to Iowa by 2 in their last home game. I think they win today and cover. Give me Rutgers here, -4. Connor, what's your take here?
Yeah, we talked about Rutgers, how bad the free throw shooting is. I think they bounce back. I don't want to lay it here. And you're right, the revenge. I want it under 3, around 3. The revenge, I think, after that blown game they had in Ohio State. I lean Rutgers, but I think they shoot better today. I think Ohio State's kind of an over team. As much as I like the under in these Big Ten games, some of them, not all of them, like last night with Purdue and Michigan State, I like the over here in Rutgers, Ohio State. I think they can get over 138. I see a 138. It's kind of dropped. The line came out at 141. I think the game goes over, and I lean Rutgers. Didn't take it. I wanted it under 3, but I lean with them as well.
All right, next up, I'm going to bring it up this game at noon, even though it's a mid-major conference. It's Colonial. This is a game worth talking about because it is one of my stronger opinions today. Hofstra Northeastern. We've got Hofstra 2-point road favorites, 140.5 the total. The total's getting bet up, and I like the over, but I like the side even more. Hofstra's another one of those teams that was in collapse mode earlier this week. They had a double-digit lead against Northeastern, blew it, lost in overtime. They're the better team, I think, than Northeastern. I don't think they're going to make that mistake again. There's a reason I think Hofstra, which opened to pick 'em, has now gone up to -2. I think they get Northeastern back, and I think you get 40 minutes. I'm sure Farrelly, who's taken over as the head coach from the departed Joe Mihalik, who's, for health reasons, I think he pounds it into their heads today. 40 minutes of basketball, unlike the only playing a good first half. Remember, they were up by 16 at halftime against Northeastern. on Thursday and ended up, or Wednesday, it was Wednesday or Thursday, I think they played, and they let the game completely slip away. I think Hofstra avenges that loss, and I still think they're the slightly better team. Asking them to just win the game, essentially. They're -2 right now. Give me Hofstra, and I also like the over in that one as well. Did you do anything for you, Connor, with that one?
Yeah, I looked at that one because I think they're the better team, and they blew that 17-point lead at halftime. This was one right in the morning. I looked at it, was one, and like you said, it's already crept to 2. I think Hofstra better be pissed because they blew that game. And like you said, I think they're the better team. And this is where I look for some of these back-to-backs I was on last night, and I did real well, and the spreads are the same, so I'm kind of staying off because I did so well last night on these. But this one was from 2 days ago. So I'm on Hofstra here, yeah. I'm on the Pride.
All right. Let's show some pride today if you're Hofstra. After what happened the other day, for sure. Texas, West Virginia. Yeah, it was brutal. Texas, West Virginia. Of course, I was on that. Of course, I was on a bunch of these blown leads. Portland, Ryan in the chat mentioned Portland Pilots against San Francisco. Portland was leading the game straight up at halftime, getting 17.5 points, and I still can't get a cover in that game. Can you believe it? They got absolutely run out in the second half. Texas, West Virginia. We've got West Virginia 1.5, 2-point home favorites, 141.5 the total. I'm through with some of this stuff, especially with these underdogs. I'm going to start splitting up first half and full game on some of these because the collapses are getting to be too much. That's what I'm going to start doing. In fact, we're going to get to Georgetown later. I'm coming back on them today, but you better believe I'm splitting that sucker up first half and full game. There's no way I'm putting it all on Georgetown full game again. I'm splitting that one up. We'll get to that in a second. But Texas, West Virginia. Look, Texas is the better of these two teams. Give me them +2. They're better than West Virginia, flat out. And they can win on the road. They showed it. They beat Kansas. Their schedule's been very, very difficult. They've challenged themselves. I like the inside-outside game that they have. They've got bigs. They've got the perimeter game with Courtney Ramey. This is a pretty good defensive team. They can get up and down the floor as well. West Virginia, to me, look, they're not back on track. They took advantage of an Oklahoma State team that fell asleep, essentially, earlier this week. Oklahoma State fell asleep with a gigantic lead at halftime. West Virginia, give them credit for coming back, but they're not going to be that fortunate again. Remember, the big man, Oscar Schwebe, is gone, left the team. And that's noticeable to mention because they've sped things up again the last couple of games without, especially the last game against Oklahoma State. They were starting to get that full court press game back. Press Virginia came back. They were speeding it up, full court, up and down, a little bit more frenetic pace. Remember, Huggy Bear's team has really reverted into a more of a slow down, methodical half-court team the last season or two. They were Press Virginia before that, but I think now that they're playing a smaller lineup, they're trying to get back to that pressing style of basketball. That's important to note from a total standpoint, which is also why I like the over in this game at 140.5. I mean, that game flew over the total, and I think you're going to get some value with overs with West Virginia in the short term till odds makers catch on to the fact they're playing faster and they're bringing that pressing style of play back to the Mountaineers. So I like Texas here +2 and over the total. The total currently sitting at 141. Yeah, 141 pretty much in most spots. Connor, your thoughts here, Texas, West Virginia.
Yeah, this one I haven't got to the window, but I'm with you with the big man Oscar that left. They're playing quicker, and you know who's playing a bit quicker and playing and scoring more is Texas with Shaka Smart. He was more defensive. You know, the last few years, Texas had a hard time scoring the ball. They can go in real bad stretches where they couldn't score, but they got the athletes this year. As much as I think an unders here, I think this one gets over, as you said. I like the over here.
Let's see, Tennessee, Texas A&M. We've got Tennessee 10-point road favorites, 130 the total. I mean, I'm done with A&M for a little bit after what I saw against South Carolina. South Carolina was depleted, and Texas A&M just gets steamrolled by South Carolina. You better believe there's no way I'm interested in taking points with them here against Tennessee, you know, one of the top teams in this conference. Tennessee team that did escape with a win against Arkansas in their last game. It wasn't pretty. And in fact, they just sounded like they lost the game. If you listen to quotes from Barnes and some of the players, they weren't happy with their performance against Arkansas. So I'd expect them to bring it. And if they bring it, they could name the number here against A&M. And I don't know where A&M scores in this game. I honestly don't know where the points come from A&M's perspective. They're not a good offensive team. They couldn't put the ball in the hoop against South Carolina, who pales in comparison defensively to Tennessee. So I would only look to the favorite. Maybe you can get away with an under here. The total's 130. It's all the concern is maybe Tennessee hangs an 80 spot in this game, and A&M puts up 48, 50, and it comes close to that number. But I don't know if A&M will or Tennessee will put up that many points, and I don't see A&M scoring much. So I would lean under the total, and I don't want this underdog. That's for sure. Conor, your take here: A&M, Tennessee.
Yeah, this is a spot. If A&M was playing any bit of basketball, pretty good basketball right here, I'd love to take them. A double-digit dog at home at 10.5, but I couldn't do it. You're right. The only look here is Tennessee. And yeah, I'd lean towards the under, but I'm worried it could creep over. Tennessee could score a little bit too much and some junk points late because I like Tennessee in some of their unders. And they've scored. They've been able to score. Kind of they struggle a little bit early. And not that their defense is backed off, but they were real suffocating early. This could be some late points, and it could creep over this 130.
Yeah, that's the concern. It's just how many does Tennessee get? I don't think A&M is going to score a ton. What do you get from the Volunteers in this one is really the big question. Rhode Island, VCU 6-point home favorites, 139, 140 the total in this one. This is one game where I think, remember I cashed against Rhode Island, I should say, the other day with Richmond, and Richmond snuck out a cover in that game. This might be a spot where I come back with Rhode Island here. VCU, to me, solid team. I don't think they're quite where they've been in past seasons. Rhode Island, for the most part, prior to the Richmond game, had been decent enough, in the road underdog role. Coming off the loss to Richmond, now you get them off a loss. I think you get them obviously wanting to show up here with a very good effort here against this VCU Rams team. I don't think they match up too poorly with VCU. Fats Russell, obviously a great player for this Rams team. I think he's going to have probably some edges. VCU sometimes does suffer with defending and guarding their man at times. So I'm going to look a little bit here to Rhode Island +6. We'll see if maybe I've got a good read on this team because I went against them successfully the other day. I think this might be the spot maybe to get back on the Rams side here in this one. Conor, your take on Rhode Island VCU?
Yeah, I don't think VCU is very good. I think they're okay. And I want the 6 here with Rhode Island. Like, you're right. I think Fats Russell can get his here. They can create enough. I think this is too many points. Give me Rhode Island here for sure.
All right. Liking Rhode Island here as well, plus the 6. Seton Hall and DePaul. Next up, we've got Seton Hall, about 3.5 point road favorites, 148 the total. The Bryce Aiken injury is significant for Seton Hall. It really hurts the backcourt. Puts a lot more duress on Miles Cale and Shavar Reynolds in that backcourt. And the problem is, so I'd be a little bit leery about laying points with 3.5 here with Seton Hall, and I kind of like what I've seen out of DePaul at times. But at the same point in time, Seton Hall is off of just an embarrassing loss against Creighton. I also wouldn't want to go against Seton Hall today. So if I was forced to, I'd lean to the Pirates -3.5. But I don't know, without Aiken, that worried me. The way they didn't play well at all without Aiken. Now, I know it's a sudden injury that he suffered against Creighton, but there was no adjustment. It looked like they were lost without him, and that worries me a little bit. I want to see if they can adjust to life without him today, which clearly they weren't able to do against Creighton. Maybe they do it today. I know you're probably going to get a much greater effort from them after just a horrendous showing at Creighton. So for that reason, I lean Seton Hall. But I'm going to stay off it because the way they played without Aiken was very, very, very concerning and alarming in my mind. Conor, your thoughts here, Seton Hall, DePaul.
Yeah, once he went down, it was just they just looked lost. It was bad. They look totally lost. I like DePaul here. This is a play on. It's just not enough points. I need more. 3, if this was 6 or so, and I think it would have been without that bad blowout loss. Seton Hall's a 7-point favorite here, 6, I think. So if you can look at it that way, it's a discount. But I don't know how Seton Hall's going to bounce back. They should. I still think they're the better team, but DePaul's scrappy. We've been on them a few times this year, and they've won. But they're defensively, they can lapse at times. They haven't looked great. They got exposed against UConn. I passed on this one as well. I mean, I guess I'd go with Seton Hall, but I had to pass. I mean, I'd lean within the 3.5, but I don't like it at all.
All right, so a lean, but just a lean there for
if I had a free bet.
Yeah, free bet, exactly. We'd take Seton Hall, or DePaul, I should say. You would in that one. Next up on the slate, let's go. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, we've gotten through most of the bigger games early in the slate. Let's see, Virginia, Boston College. I'll be brief there. I'm not going to be involved in that game. I get a little leery laying, 9.5, that kind of price range on the road with Virginia sometimes. 131 the total, but Boston College is going to be, again, struggle to score. They have been starting to cover numbers as an underdog, Boston College, but again, they've played Duke, they've played NC State. They don't play the defense Virginia does. What's your thoughts here, Conor, of Virginia, Boston College? It's a clear pass for me.
Yeah, I like this one a little bit. Now that I see a 9, I like it even more. I'm going to take a shot with Boston College at home, and this is either they play well or they're going to throw up a dud. But I'd rather them be at home. I think they got a better shot. And I haven't been that impressed with Virginia. I don't think, they beat Wake the other day by 9. You had Wake, right? You covered in that one. I think you had Wake.
I leaned Wake. I didn't bet it, but I leaned that way, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, I thought you bet it. And forget the game before. They barely won. They're just never a team I like with a number. I'm going to take a shot here with BC, especially now that it's 9. I liked it a bit at 8.5. I like it at 9. They've been scrappy. It's just at times they're a lapse team. I kind of think of them as Rhode Island. They can step up, have good wins, can play well, and then other games, catch a beat down. But I'll take them here. Oh, it was against Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame by 9 in Virginia. That was the game I was thinking about. But, yeah, BC here. Take the points with them.
All right, Oklahoma, Kansas at Fog Allen. Kansas 6.5, favorites 145 the total. Oklahoma's kind of been a thorn in Kansas's side in recent meetings, and that's the trouble here. But this is also the first game for Kansas at home, and they're going to remember the last time they played a game in this building, I should say, Fog Allen. It was that ugly loss to Texas, the worst loss in Fog Allen Fieldhouse history for the Kansas Jayhawks. This will be their first time playing at the Fog since that loss a week ago against the Texas Longhorns. You would think an A game is something you're going to get from Kansas here in this spot. And we saw their A game certainly the other night. Best bet material for me on this show with Kansas minus the 5.5, 6 against TCU. And they absolutely took apart the Horned Frogs in that game. When Kansas is on their game, they can compete and beat anybody. And we saw that the other night against TCU. And again, with this being just the first home game for them since that ugly debacle against Texas, I would expect them to be revved up. I'm not laying the points here with Kansas, but if I had to place a bet here in this game, I would probably lean a little bit to Rock, Chalk, Jayhawk in this one. Conor, Big 12 action. What do you think here?
Yeah, I haven't done it yet either. I think at under 7, 6.5. You're right. Oklahoma has played them well. But if Kansas plays their A game, they cover this, especially at 6.5. I think it's or at 6, it's a little bit of a steal. If they play Kansas C level, Oklahoma could be in this one. So I lean to lay it if you can get 6.5. From what I see, it might go down because I see some 7, 6.5. And another one, I think automatic under, in a conference game, but both these teams in Kansas been over. They've been, scoring tons, and Oklahoma scoring as well. I lean over a little bit. The total's a little bit high at 144.5.
Yeah, there's someone asking about Missouri State Valpo. We might as well throw in a couple people asking about specific
Yeah,
games.
yeah.
Any thoughts on Missouri State? I like Missouri State. I think they're better than Valpo. You only have to lay 2.5 on the road, or you can lay the -145 on the money line, which is what I did. Yeah, I'm on Missouri State. I think they're just a better basketball team. I'm not a big Valpo fan this year.
I agree. I think Valpo's not very good this year. They're not some of the good Valpo teams of the past. So, yeah, I'd lay it with Missouri State.
All right, so we're in agreement there. Texas Tech, Iowa State. We've got Texas Tech, 8-point favorites on the road, 133.5 the total in this game. We've talked about this with Texas Tech. This has not been a covering machine, particularly of late. And I'll say this about Iowa State. Remember how ugly it was early in the season for them? It was just not good. I mean, you're worried about this team. It's like, geez, they look terrible. I know they lost Ty Halliburton to the draft, and they're in Monte Moore. They've had some really good guards in recent years, and I don't think they have the guard play they've had in years past. But I never expected them to just be so bad, Iowa State, early in the season. But Steve Prohm was a guy that coached for years at Murray State. He's been here now at Iowa State now for several years. You figured if as the season goes on, this would be a team that would have the opportunity to improve and better. I know they're still winless in Big 12 play, but they competed and hung around against Baylor. They only lost by 5 to West Virginia. They only lost by 6 to a very good Texas team on the road as well. That game was in Texas. They only lost 78-72. So I'm starting to see some signs of life here from this Iowa State team. Texas Tech coming off an 82-71 win against Kansas State, but again, did not cover. I understand Texas Tech, the better of these two teams, should win the game. I'm not going to lay 8.5, though. It's a pass for me, but keep an eye on Iowa State. They might be a sneaky point spread team moving forward, and they've already shown signs of it in their last couple of games. What's your thoughts, Connor?
Yeah, it's a pass for me, too. We talked about it before. Texas Tech, I just don't want to lay points. Not on the road. And Iowa State, last 4 or 5 games, they've been covering. They've covered 3 out of 4. 5-point loss to West Virginia, 11 to Baylor. They were kind of getting beat by Texas. It was only 6 that was bigger. But still, they scored come in there late. I lean Iowa State. I needed 10. I wanted 10 or more. 10 or more, I'd take Iowa State. But I'm not going to lay it with Texas Tech, so I had to pass as well. Just not enough for them.
Yeah, I agree. Georgetown, Syracuse, 10.5-point home favorites, 148 the total. Georgetown has had back-to-back second-half collapses, and I do like them here. Plus, I don't trust Syracuse. Can't be laying 10.5 right now. That was ugly for them. You talk about blowing a lead. Syracuse against Pittsburgh the other day, and Pittsburgh's banged up beyond belief, and Syracuse ends up blowing that game against the Pitt Panthers and losing. Terrible loss for Jim Boeheim's team. I don't trust them as double-digit favorites. I'm going to get back on Georgetown, but I'm not going to make the same mistake I made against Butler the other night. I'm going to split this up between the first half with Georgetown, which I think is around 5.5, and the full game, which is 10.5 with Georgetown, just in case second half gets away from them again. But to me, it's hard to make a case to lay this many points with Syracuse. They just haven't been consistent enough. Connor, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, Georgetown, they just can't put 40 minutes together, but there's no way Syracuse should be a 10-point favorite right now. I mean, not even to Georgetown. I think it should be 7, 6.5, the way Syracuse has played. I guess they're going off their potential and their name and all that. I'm with you. I haven't got there yet. I'm going to wait on this one till a little bit later, but I lean Georgetown. I take the points, and you could still, there's 10s out there. I even see 10.5 at DraftKings. So I'd lean with Georgetown as well.
All right, we'll break down 2 more games on the main board, and then we'll talk college football national championship game, and then we'll wrap up this show with best bets. Reminder, noon Eastern, 20 minutes from now, we've got the NFL closing time show. We'll get you ready for Wild Card Weekend, Connor, Ski, and myself. Let's do UCLA, Arizona, Pac-12 action. Arizona, 3-point home favorites, 138.5 the total. Not pretty by UCLA, and to me, that was not very impressive. That Arizona State was shorthanded beyond belief the other night. A ton of guys out, including Remy Martin, and UCLA is still life and death to beat Arizona State, needing to go to overtime in that game. They didn't close the game out very well either, Mick Cronin's team, but they got the win. They really did control the game, but again, portions of it, they fell asleep. That was an issue. Some turnovers became a problem for UCLA trying to close that game out, but they found a way when it was all said and done to improve to 4-0 in conference play. They do have a good team. Chris Smith, the injury hurts, but I saw guys step up. Jalen Hill, Johnny Juzang, very impressive. Tiger Campbell hit some big shots down the stretch as well for UCLA. It's still a team that's got a lot of talent, even without Smith, and they showed that against Arizona State, albeit it wasn't a pretty win. Now can they do it against this Arizona Wildcats team? Sean Miller's team is coming off an 87-73 loss against USC. You would think they'll be chomping at the bit, wanting to bounce back here. But boy, I mean, I get the bounce back spot, but laying 3.5 with Arizona in this one, I'm not that interested in doing that. I would lean UCLA a little bit. It feels like a desperation spot for Arizona. It wouldn't shock me to have Arizona win, but I think it could be a close game. And if I wouldn't talk anyone out of grabbing the points here, because I still think UCLA could be the better of these two teams. What's your thoughts, Conor?
I got to go with UCLA. I think they played. I think it's too many. Arizona just not very good at home. And I've been SC just took it to them. The 4 points, they didn't 4. They beat them soundly, I think by 15. I watched them real close. I watched them real close their last few games. The game before that, the Washington State, and then the SC. Even with Smith out, UCLA but I think I take the 3 here with the Bruins. I'm not impressed. I mean, Arizona is at home, but maybe if you can get the hook, I don't know if you wait. I don't know if it moves that way. I see 3s across the board, but UCLA I'd take the 3 here. I think in a close game, give me the 3 points, the possession with UCLA.
All right, there you go. Liking UCLA. That would be the side I'd veer with. If it was Arizona below this 3, like if they were pick'em -1, I think that's a fair number. That's probably where I had it. Because I think they should be close to pick'em, maybe slight favorite Arizona, given the spot and the situation for them at home, where UCLA's traveling. Second road game in 3 days, but 3.5 seems rich to me as well. If you like the Arizona side, and there could be some value on the Bruins. We'll wrap it up. Final game that we'll discuss on the main board: Oregon versus Utah. Utah 2-point road favorites here. Total 138.5 in Salt Lake City. I'm liking Oregon here, to be quite honest with you. I know they're coming off the loss against Colorado. They never win in Colorado. That's number one. And number 2, Colorado, I think, is a little bit better than Utah. I think Utah in situations where they get on the road and they're catching a good number of points, that's the role I'm going to be looking to bet Utah in, because I think they're a feisty team, but I think they're going to struggle to beat straight up better teams in this conference. You see the results last weekend. They lost to UCLA. They lost to USC by 18. They lost to BYU by 18. The wins came against Washington, who stink, Idaho State, Idaho, and Utah Valley for this Utah team this year. So, and Oregon off a loss, I expect their best effort to bounce back, and they're the better of these two teams. Chris Duarte and company, I think they have a good chance to come back strong here. I'm a little bit surprised all this money's come in on Utah, to be honest with you. I'll wait it out and probably take Oregon at the best price I can get. Conor, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm going to wait on this one as well. I like Oregon. I think they get it done. Utah's so good at home. This is a tough one. I might pass all the way around. If this gets down to a pick 'em, I maybe lean to Oregon. But the only thing Utah at home, this is where they get a W against Oregon. It's strength, like kind of every year. Not against Oregon specifically, but against SC or some team like that, they always get a solid couple wins at home the last few years.
Yeah.
They're just a different team at home. It's just weird. And on the road, they can just get crushed. Look like a totally different team. But I lean with the Ducks. And you're right. If this goes down, more money on Utah. If it goes down to maybe -1 or a pick 'em, I'd probably go with the Ducks. Take them.
All right. But before we get to best bets and wrap up the closing time show for college basketball, we have a national championship to be decided in college football Monday night, Ohio State, Alabama, where the current line sits with Alabama 8-point favorites, 75 the total in this game. Monday night, national championship on the line. Is Ohio State what we saw from them against Clemson? Is it a thing that can continue on Monday night, or was that just a one-off? And was that just a situation where they got so riled up by Clemson with Dabo saying what he did about the team in the 11th ranking, that they shouldn't have maybe been in the playoffs because of the lack of games they played, that just got them all riled up, and they played the game of their lives with their hair on fire, so to speak? Was that what led to that performance? Or was it a sign that maybe Ohio State, hey, they can do this again? They can replicate what they did against Clemson here against Alabama? That's the fundamental question. Here's why I think it could be a little bit more difficult. First of all, Alabama's offensive line has been almost untouchable this year. And that the most shocking thing about Ohio State's win against Clemson was their defensive line, which at times this year has been hit or miss. They blew up the line of scrimmage against Clemson. I did not see that coming. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was under pressure. Travis Etienne couldn't run the football with any success. And Ohio State's defensive line was the reason why. But it's going to be tougher against Alabama. We've all seen Alabama play this year. Is anybody getting close to Mac Jones when he's dropping back to throw the football? Not very often. This guy's got a clean pocket most times. They might even have Jalen Waddle back. Not that he needs another weapon with Devontae Smith and company, but and my Canadian boy as well, John Mechie. I love seeing him do well for this Alabama team out of Canada. But I think it's going to be difficult for Clemson to get that same pressure because the Alabama offensive line has been pristine all season long. For Ohio State, I should say, to get the same pressure on Alabama. On the flip side, how healthy is Justin Fields? You know, he gutted through a rib injury last week, or in the win against Clemson in the semifinal. May not be as easy to gut your way through that here against an Alabama team that I kind of thought coming into the semifinals personally. Some people thought Alabama and Clemson were on par, that they were equal teams or right around the same footing. I think this year there's a little bit of a difference between Alabama. I think Alabama's a notch, maybe even 2 notches better than Clemson. And I think that's going to end up showing through here. And to be honest with you, Alabama's a single-digit favorite here. Not necessarily the price range I want to go against. I think they've been a single-digit favorite one time this year, and that was against Georgia. And we know how that game went. Alabama rolled in that game over the Georgia Bulldogs. So you don't get Alabama this cheap very often. Again, this is a team that did not make the playoff last year. I think there's definitely incentive for especially the now newly crowned Heisman Trophy winner Devontae Smith, who was on the Alabama team last year that wasn't a playoff team, incentive to finish the job, get it done. And with Ohio State, there's a lot of questions about who's in, who's out. You know, COVID-19 has been clearly a problem throughout that program for the last several weeks. I think it adds up to Alabama, maybe not completely blowing out Ohio State, but doing enough to cover this number. And I like the first half angle on Alabama even more, -4.5. Yeah, it's hard to argue with it. We're talking 10-2 to the first half this year. Alabama, they've 10-2 is the record for Alabama first half spreads. It's won 10 times, it's only lost 2 times, and it's won 8 straight times. Alabama first half wagers going into this game. So I like Alabama first half, a little less on the full game. And look, I'm going to sprinkle a little on the over because I really truly believe this has extreme shootout written all over it. Ohio State's secondary, I don't think is that great. And man, are they going to get tested here in this game by Alabama's passing attack, and especially if Waddle returns as well. I think they're going to struggle with it. I think that Alabama puts up a big amount of points. Clemson, though, has got the capabilities, I think, offensively that maybe Notre Dame didn't in terms of skill position, Justin Fields' running ability. The ground game of Trey Sermon is going to be more formidable than any Notre Dame ground attack. Of course, Chris Olave coming back against Clemson makes that wide receiving core much more dangerous. So I think Ohio State gets their share of points too, but Alabama, I really think they could score on the majority, 90% of their possessions, Alabama. I'm not buying what Ohio State defense showed me against Clemson. So I'm looking at first half, Alabama. That's probably the favorite bet of all 3 that I'm on. Alabama full game -8 and also the over 75. And I cashed a prop with Mac Jones over 2.5 touchdown passes against Notre Dame. I'd look for that same prop again here.
Yeah.
I don't like this. Other than Wade, who's an All-American, the rest of that Ohio State secondary is not very good. And I think he'll pick it apart. What's your thoughts, Conor? National title game.
Yeah, I think this one should be good. The whole thing is, like you broke it down, is Fields had the game of his life. 6 touchdowns, just unreal. And that was the best Ohio State looked all year. That was the best defensively against Lawrence they looked all year. I keep going back to it was different. We'll see how banged up are his ribs, how much is COVID going around. I think they'll be fine by game time. I think I for the most the best players on the team will be on the field. Um, I like Bama first half. I'm with you. I don't know how much those ribs are gonna do with Field. I'm on the under, full game under, and I'm gonna wait till game time. I'm gonna just keep watching it. I'm worried with, like you said, it could be into just a back and forth. But I think Alabama's defense is the big one here. I just keep going back to that Northwestern game against Ohio State. They kind of shut them down. A little different, but I think Bama. I think in the beginning's a more feel out, and I think Bama can score on Ohio State. I was just shocked how good Ohio State's defense played against Clemson, because they got torched all year. So that's why I'm a little cautious on the under because of that. It could get into a shootout, and Bama could do what they want. But like you said, Bama's the better team. And like you said, you think they're a notch above these other Bama teams of the years past, even the other national championship teams. I agree with you. But now that it's at 8, I'm more the first half. You said it was 10-2. I thought it was 11-1, but I'll take 10-2. While we were on it, I was on it all year. I'll take the 10-2.
I think it depends on what one of the games was lined at, but it's either 10-2 or 11.
Yeah. I might have missed it. But anyways, I've been on it all year, and I never got off it. I'm going to stick to that too, just in case, because it's at 8 now in most places. So Bama first half. I like that prop of Jones 2.5 touchdowns. That's a good one. I think he gets 3. Let's just say that. And I lean the under. I don't know why. It's just 75 and a half. It might go up. It might go up a little bit. It's a ton of points. But it could get into that. You nailed it. I mean, I could see it just start going back and forth. Maybe late in the second half. But the under, I'm on the under, and I like Bama first half. Those are the two bets. So the under full game and Bama first half, I'm going to play for sure.
Yeah, like I say, I like the over, but I like it as long as that game stays close. If I see Alabama, or maybe Ohio State will really shock us and be up by 21 or 28. But if Alabama gets up by 14, 21, we saw them take the air out of the ball and really slow it down against Notre Dame. So I might look at a live under if that gets to be the case on Monday night. But for now, I lean over. But again, the thing I like most of all is that first half on Alabama here, -4.5. All right, best bets. Let's wrap it up for college basketball. I'll start with my best bet for this Saturday card. I'm going to do the Texas-West Virginia total. I like Texas too, but I think the total might actually be the better bet, 140. Because again, West Virginia sped it up, and there could be extreme value on these overs because odds makers are still power rating the totals for West Virginia based on full season results and stats, not factoring in the change in their style without the big man who left the team. And we saw it against Oklahoma State. Way more possessions, way more pace, and way more points. That game flew over the total. I think there's value on West Virginia overs right here, right now, in this game, and probably the next few until odds makers make that adjustment. So Texas, West Virginia, over 140. Let's go with that for a best bet. Someone in the chat asked about Cal Washington. Yes, Cal is on my card, -2, 2.5. I know Bradley is out potentially again for Cal, but they just have to win against a pathetic, sad sack Washington team. I'll take my chances. Conor, best bet for you.
Cal's on my card as well. So they just got to win, basically, the bucket. I like two. I'm going to give one real quick. I just think Tulane's catching 18. With Mills out, I think Houston, that's a big number. Look at Tulane. I think that's a ton of points. Grab that. But my best bet, I kind of have two. I just want to get that one out there. I thought that was a real value there with Tulane. I don't think they're that bad. I think they could cover that number. But I'm going to I like that over as well, by the way. in that West Virginia. I like that play. I'm going to be on that. I'm going to take Kentucky plus 4.5 at Florida. I know it might be not the most love it play, but I think it's too many. I think they stay in this game easily. They think they can win it maybe outright. I want 5. There's 4.5 now. Maybe wait. I think you might get a 5, but 4.5 for sure. Give me Kentucky 4.5. I think they start playing better basketball. It's time. The time is now.
They are starting to get it going a little bit. They have in the last couple of games. They covered against Louisville on the road at getting this same amount of points. They didn't win, but they covered, losing by 3, I think. That'll get the job done for you here if that happens. So Kentucky plus 4.5 against Florida for Conor Mack with his best bet. That's going to wrap it up, guys. We're back in like essentially 5 minutes with the NFL closing time show with Ski Profit, Conor, and myself. Make sure you tune in for that. For Conor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Saturday. Enjoy the college basketball action. We'll see you in 5 minutes. We're back with the NFL closing time show.